The TV screen flickered, casting a cold glow across my tiny Brooklyn apartment. My heart stopped as I watched him, Elliot. My Elliot staring into the camera, his voice trembling on live television, saying goodbye to someone he called Starlight. My phone buzzed, and the truth he'd buried for years shattered everything I thought I knew. I met Elliot online 3 years ago, on a forum for indie music lovers buried in the depths of the internet. We were both 22, two souls hiding behind usernames: Moonstruck, and him, Starlight. Our chats started with debates over Radiohead's best album, but soon we were sharing dreams, fears, and secrets we couldn't tell anyone else. I was a barista in Brooklyn, scraping by, while he was a budding journalist in a small Ohio town, chasing stories and dodging expectations. We never met in person, but his words felt like home. Every night, my phone lit up with his messages, each one a tether to something bigger than my lonely life. Elliot was funny, sharp, and achingly kind. He'd write long, poetic messages about the stars over his hometown, how they reminded him of freedom he couldn't quite grasp. I'd reply with stories of New York's chaos, the way the city's pulse drowned out my doubts. We fell in love through pixels, our hearts sinking across 1,000 miles. But there was always a shadow of hesitation in his words, a refusal to video call or meet. I chalked it up to shyness, but deep down, I sensed he was holding something back. Last month, Elliot landed a guest spot on a national talk show, The Open Mic, to discuss his viral article about small-town America. I was proud, thrilled, but nervous. He'd never liked attention, always saying he felt safer in the background. "I'm not ready for the world to see me, Caleb," he'd texted once. I didn't push. But when he announced he'd use his airtime to share a personal message, my stomach twisted. Who was it for? Why did it feel like a goodbye? The night of the broadcast, I sat on my worn couch, clutching my phone. The show's host, a charismatic woman with a megawatt smile, introduced Elliot as the voice of a generation. He looked different on screen, polished, his dark hair swept back, his hazel eyes catching the studio lights. But his hands fidgeted, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. My phone vibrated with a notification, but I ignored it, glued to the TV. "Before I talk about the article," Elliot said, his voice soft but steady, "I need to say something to someone out there. Someone I've never met, but who means everything to me." My breath caught. Was this about me? "Starlight," he continued, "I'm sorry. I've been hiding who I am, and I can't keep you in the dark anymore. This is my goodbye. I hope you find the love you deserve." The host leaned forward, clearly unprepared. "Wow, Elliot, that's powerful. Care to share more?" But he just shook his head, tears brimming, and the show cut to commercial. My heart pounded. Why goodbye? What was he hiding? I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and opened his message. "Caleb, it's me. I'm Starlight. I'm sorry I lied. Check your email, please." I fumbled to my laptop, my mind racing. The email was titled "The Truth." It was long, raw, and written in a rush. Elliot confessed he'd grown up in a conservative Ohio town, where being gay was a sin whispered about in church pews. He'd known he loved men since he was 13, but fear kept him closeted. When we met online, he'd created Starlight as a shield, a way to love me without risking his world collapsing. But the talk show was his breaking point, couldn't live the lie anymore. Even if it meant losing me. Tears blurred my vision. I wasn't angry. Just heartbroken. He'd loved me in secret, carrying the weight of his truth alone. I typed a reply, my fingers trembling. Elliot, I'm not going anywhere. Call me. Now. Minutes later, my phone rang. His voice was choked with sobs. Caleb, I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you'd hate me for lying. I could hear the studio noise fading in the background, must have slipped away after his segment. I don't hate you, I said, my own voice breaking. I love you. I just wish you'd trusted me sooner. We talked until dawn, unraveling years of fear and hope. He told me about his family's expectations, the pressure to be the perfect son, the panic attacks he'd hidden from me. I told him about my own struggles growing up Black and queer in a world that often rejected both. For the first time, we were fully honest. No screens between us. By the end, we made a plan. He'd visit New York. We'd meet. Face to face. No more hiding. Elliot's flight landed at JFK 2 weeks later. I stood in the arrivals terminal, heart pounding like a drum. What if he wasn't what I imagined? What if I wasn't enough? But when he stepped through the gate, carrying a beat-up backpack, his eyes found mine instantly. He was real taller than I'd pictured, with a nervous smile that lit up the chaos around us. I ran to him, and we hugged, the world fading away. His arms felt like the home I'd been searching for. We spent the day wandering Brooklyn, sharing coffee and stories. He laughed at my terrible latte art, and I teased him for pronouncing bagel wrong. Under the Brooklyn Bridge, with the city sparkling behind us, he took my hand. I'm scared, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But I'm here. For you. I squeezed his hand, my heart full. We'll figure it out together. That night, we sat on my fire escape, the city humming below. He told me about the fallout from his TV appearances, parents' angry calls, his friends' mixed reactions. Some supported him. Others turned away. I lost a lot, he said, staring at the stars. But I gained you. I leaned against him, feeling the weight of his courage. He'd risked everything to be honest, and I loved him more for it. But the story wasn't over. A week later, Elliot got a call from the open mic. They wanted him back for a follow-up segment, this time to talk about his coming out. The catch: they wanted me there too. Panic surged through me. I'd never been on TV, never faced the world like that. Elliot saw my fear and took my hand. You don't have to, he said. But I'd love to tell our story together. His eyes were steady, full of the trust we'd built. I nodded, terrified but ready. The studio lights were blinding, the audience a blur. The host, kinder than I'd expected, asked how we'd met, how we'd navigated the distance and the secrets. Elliot spoke first, his voice stronger now. Caleb was my safe place, he said. He loved me even when I couldn't love myself. I blushed, unprepared for the warmth in his words. When it was my turn, I stumbled at first, then found my rhythm. Elliot showed me love doesn't need to be perfect, I said. It just needs to be real. The audience applauded, and for a moment, it felt like the world was cheering for us. Backstage, Elliot pulled me into a hug, his lips brushing my forehead. We did it, he whispered, I smiled, my heart racing. Yeah, we did. Months later, we were still learning each other. Elliot moved to New York, chasing a new job and a life where he could be himself. It wasn't easy as family still struggled with his truth, and I faced my own doubts about being enough for him. But every night, we'd sit on the fire escape, talking about the future. We dreamed of a world where love like ours didn't need to hide, where truth didn't come with a cost. One evening, under a sky streaked with pink and gold, Elliot turned to me. I used to think love was a risk I couldn't take, he said. But you changed that. He pulled out a small ring, simple but shining with promise. Caleb, will you stay with me? For real. Tears stung my eyes as I nodded, unable to speak. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and we kissed, the city alive around us. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Through screens and secrets, fear and courage, we'd found each other. And in the end, the truth Elliot buried became the foundation of the life we built together. Unapologetically, under the stars.